abstract. Yeah, it's complicated. What you say, the way you act. Well, it makes me so confused. I don't know what to do anymore. Can't you just make up your mind? My heart drops when you play around. How can you be up when I'm down? Don't wanna think about it right now. Maybe you just wanna be pressed. There is a fight when we are talking. Maybe you just wanna pretend, but I can read between the lines. Even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting. Still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my live Q&A session for the Cardmaker Success Summit 2024. So happy to have you guys here with me today and excited to share all of my amazing, brilliant ideas from this beautiful bald head with you. So welcome. And I see lots of people in here that are my buddies, my friends. I see Brandy, who's my crafty BFF, right? Everybody's crafty BFF. Happy to see Brandy in here. And everybody, I see Teresa Milner in here and Catherine Hodgson. Hello, hello. Let me know if you got questions. What is it that you'd like me to answer? And I will do my best. Vanessa McPherson is the first one up. If you can have only one tool, what would it be? I guess it would have to be, honestly, it would have to be a Misty. I mean, I need the Misty for everything else. So yeah, stamping with a Misty would be my first tool, my most important tool. How about you? What would be your favorite tool? I'd like to hear it see it in the comments section. That'd be really cool. That'd be cool. What is your biggest tip for those of us just starting with coloring and markers? Ooh, that's a really good question. My biggest tip would be to practice, practice, practice. Practice, practice, practice. So just spend hours getting used to playing with your markers. Don't worry about how good it looks at first. I mean, obviously you're going to want it to look good soon, but in the beginning, it's not going to look great. It's just not, unless you're just born with this natural, total understanding of markers and colors. So I would say hours and hours and hours, just sitting, doodling and playing with your markers, getting used to the feel of the markers, getting used to the colors and how they blend with each other. I'm not one for swatching stuff very much, so I don't like to sit around and swatch. And that would be really boring to me. But there's a way to play with your markers, just coloring and playing. And the good thing about stamps is you can just stamp and it's just paper, so you can make as many images as you like and as many mistakes as you like. So yeah, practice is my biggest tip. Do you use card making to reach out in your ministry? Cynthia Sprando. I do indirectly. So when I'm online or whenever I'm sharing my skills or my little card sessions online, I will often use that platform to speak truth. So yeah, in a certain way, but not directly. I don't like use cards in my ministry per se, like giving cards out to people. I don't do that. Oh, by the way, here's the card that I created for you guys today. This is the one I colored live or in my session, sorry. So I wanted to share that with you. Just make sure we're on the same page. Do you see this is no line coloring, and it's just a suggestion. So you know that the stamps I used weren't actually intended for them to be dancing. They were intended for something else, but you can mask them in and make them however you like in your scene. That's super fun. I'm glad you guys like the bunnies. I'm glad you like. I love this card. It's probably one of my favorite cards I've ever made. Honestly, just I love the whole vibe, the colors, the no line coloring. It's just my favorite. I think it's got to be my favorite card ever. Always interested to know, how do you get interested in card making? I know that's a great question. I knew someone was going to ask it because I get asked that every time. But I have a friend at church who is a card maker and a YouTuber, just an all around crafting genius. Her name is Vilma Mendez. Paper for Life is her handle on Instagram. She brought her stuff to church one day to play with the kids, did an activity, and I thought it was just amazing, which it is. I mean, not everyone is interested in it, but man, it just really struck a chord with me. So I started asking her how she did that, how she did this, and then I just fell head first into it. So now it's been 7 years, I guess. Wow. This March, yeah, this month, 7 years. I thought was really cool how you colored that card. I have to keep practicing to get that good. Suzette, keep practicing. Yep. Cynthia says, who was your greatest inspiration when you got started in card making? The queen of card making is Jennifer McGuire. She was my biggest inspiration. I sat and went to Jennifer McGuire University basically by sitting and watching her for hours and hours and hours. I was going through kind of a anxious time in my life at the time and needed to get out of my head basically, because I was living in my head too much. You can do that, right? I was going through some major anxiety because of life situations, and I needed to get out of my head for a bit, and this was one way I did it. And I would just sit and watch her and listen to her and watch her color or make cards, and thought, wow, I'm going to try that. And I would copy her stuff and just try to make things as best as possible. Her and Christina Werner. Yep. Kathy Joe, hi, my friend. Did you make sure you had a larger craft room in your new house? I did, actually. Where the garage that I'm in is in my daughter's house. This is my old house. We sold it to her. And in our new house, the garage is a 2-car garage, but it needs a new roof on it before we build it out. So this coming week, we are supposed to be tearing that roof off and putting a new roof on. And then we're going to build out a new craft space in there for me. So I'm pretty excited about that. Question. Where did you come up with the name for your company? So on my website, I have a little story there about that. DellandArty.com. You can find it there. But I went to Bible college in St. Louis. A friend of mine there, we had nicknames because we saw preachers use their first initials, for their names on signs instead of their full names. And it seemed a little self-important. So we would kind of make fun of that. And his name was Ricky Daniel. My name is Daniel Lee. And so we took our first initials, DL, and his was RD. And then we would just call each other DL and RD. And then it kind of ran together. I was Del and he was RD. And now, 30 years later, he's still my buddy, and I called the name of my blog Del and Artie because I want to be friends with you guys, right? Oh yeah, Kathy wants to see my new craft room when it's done. I will. You'll see a tour. Robin McBride wants to know, what alcohol markers do I use? I use Copic markers, and I just got in the mail. I just received a new box of Altenew markers, so I'm excited about those. I do have some of alcohol markers from Altenew, and they work beautifully. I love them too, but I'm so used to Copic markers that I can just grab one and find the one that I need pretty quickly because I know how they work and how they blend. And I'm not saying I know it better than anyone else. I'm just saying I'm really accustomed to using Copic markers. So Copics are the best. And if you can afford those, get those. If you can't afford those, maybe you could try um, another brand. There are other brands, it's up to you. Whatever you're trying to do. I don't have experience with many other markers, so I can't really talk about them. Although there is a set that the Sketch Marker Pros that I really like as well. I've played with those. Yeah. Do you have a tip on how to protect the alcohol markers from fading? Nope. You mean fading over time? Is that what you mean? Like once you lay them down on paper? I haven't had the experience that they fade. You may want to keep them out of direct sunlight. Maybe that can be a bleaching on projects. So, but other than that, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I've seen you use markers for blending. Do you use any other mediums? Cynthia, that's a really good question. Yes, I do. I use inks for blending, just like Ardith just mentioned these. Catherine Pooler inks. Ooh, all right, there you are. My mirror is on, so the words are backwards. But Catherine Pooler inks are great for blending. Watercolor, they're great for watercolor backgrounds. You can use them with blender pens like this. Oh, this is a Versamarker. Here, like this, a blender pen. And you can color with these. So you just dip them into your pad and grab some ink out of there. And those work well as well for coloring. They're not the best at blending that way, but they're fun. They're fun. I also love colored pencils, but I'm not a pro at those. You saw me use colored pencils in my class if you watched the video already. So I do like to add details with colored pencils to my Copic drawings. And I love watercolor. Enjoy watercolor very much. Not that great at it, but I do enjoy it. Pam Kant, what paper do you recommend for Copic coloring? Is there an inexpensive substitute for top recommendation? Well, I mean, if you're gonna do art and you're gonna enjoy the process, I like to use Express It. I mean, it's just the best Copic friendly paper. It's designed for Copic, and I believe it's even made by Copic, if I'm not mistaken. It's Copic branded on SimonsSaysStamp.com. On the other hand, there are other papers that work fine. Like you're not going to get as good a smooth as a blend with these others, but I use Nina Solar White. I use Accent White. I just don't use watercolor paper because it's going to really soak in your alcohol ink. Express It card it's in the supplies list from my video. If you go to my video and look for the supplies list, you'll see it there. And in my session this afternoon for Colorado Craft Company, I'll share it there as well. There's a link there for the supplies. What else we got, guys? Do you have other hobbies or outlets for when card making gets too stressful? Ooh, that's a really good question, Susan. Yes. I, over the last 2 months, have been very out of whack with my card making. I've just not felt inspired. I've taken on even more responsibilities at church because the church just keeps growing, and more responsibilities with developing leaders. And so that's more of a one-on-one process and very slow. And, but yeah, since our church is growing, I'm taking on new roles and handing off roles. And I've been really just in another area. and we've had some other things happening. So sometimes my hobby, it's not just a hobby for me, it's business, but it kind of takes off. That I have to take off sometimes because I'm just not inspired, or if I'm too stressed, or if I'm not in the right place mentally, I can be thinking of other things, and it doesn't help me when I want to be creative. So there are other things that I do. So the question is, what are my other hobbies? I love genealogy. I love genealogy. I love family history. In fact, I was just able to find my wife. She was adopted from Guatemala. I was just able to find her birth mother's family. Her mother passed away, but she didn't know she had a family still alive in Guatemala or from Guatemala. And we just met them. I was able to connect her with them. And now we're going to fly out in March, later this month, to Chicago to visit her aunt, her mother's sister. It's an amazing story, and we think we may make a documentary out of the whole thing. It's an amazing story. I just gave you a glimpse. But yes, it's very exciting. This month, genealogy has really meant something super special for my wife. You know, very special. Yes, Cynthia, thank you very much. Orly, what causes Copic markers to suddenly leak when coloring? If they're overfilled, when they're overfilled, they can leak. If that happens, just take the other. I take the lid off the other end, and it kind of helps even things out a bit. So, I mean, they're not pressurized or anything, but taking the cap off the other end actually helps pull that ink back a little bit. So yes, that has happened to me before. I think no, it didn't happen on this card, but man, I was in the middle of a project not long ago, and this big blob of ink just came out of my marker, and I had almost finished the project. It took me like an hour to color in, and I wanted to holler. So I had to find a way to creatively cover that up. What is the best way to store Copic markers? I store mine in a little caddy like this with a holder I bought from what is that? Etch no Etsy. I can't think of the word Etsy. I bought it off Etsy. Just search Copic marker storage. I store mine vertically. Some people like to store theirs horizontally. How much time can we count on to blend with alcohol markers before it's too late? They you don't it's not too late. Alcohol markers can be oversaturated. You can get too much ink on the page, and then it becomes like mottled, mottled, mottled. But they will still blend. So if you have just a few passes, maybe 4 or 5 before you get into mottling. So, but you can definitely blend. Okay, guys, that's a wrap. That's it for me. Thank you very much. So glad to have you on. I'll have more opportunity to answer questions later. Talk to you later, guys.